Hello and welcome to Landy's Crypto Corner. Today is February 13th, 2024, and we are staring at charts yet again here, looking at Bitcoin on the daily, and we are looking at the Bollinger Band chart. We can see that Bitcoin has now lost the upper second standard deviation of the Bollinger Bands, which is coming in just above the wick highs there at around 50,000. It's actually in the wick highs at around 50,330 or so. Now, if Bitcoin does regain that, I would look for continuation into the mid to low $50,000 region. Of course, if it does step down, it still remains bullish above the upper first and basis here. The upper first is coming in at around 47,500, about $500 above a monthly support level. We'll take a look at that in just a moment on the support and resistance chart. And directly below there, if Bitcoin were to lose that area, the next big area to look for would be this basis band, which is coming in right around this closing high of the more condensed range prior to the deviation to the highs at 49,000 and the deviation to the monthly support at 38.5. Now, this is roughly at around $45,000 on the close here, with the wick high coming in at about 46. That would be the zone to watch if the upper first there at 47,500 to around 47K is lost. Now, if the basis there at just under the monthly at 45K and this daily close open here is lost at 44,726 or so, I would look right back to this consolidation prior to the new highs. Now, this is coming in at roughly 43 to 43 and a half on the wicks and around 44K actually on the wicks there. If that does not hold up, then we're looking to the bottom side here by the weekly support at 41.8 by the lower first. That's kind of the line in the sand for this particular move. If that area is lost, I would be looking for the lows of this more condensed range back down to that monthly area and weekly area at $38,500 to $39,000. As it stands right now, Bitcoin's got higher low structure in place. So the first thing to look for on any kind of a pullback from here would be higher low structure. As it stands right now, in order to put in a high, we would need to see a daily close below 48,330 or so. And below there, that would be a confirmed swing high as well as a closing high. And it would be right around that upper first. Now, it wouldn't be a given that it would just go down below the upper first, but typically what we would find is the upper first starting to get above price action as the basis band begins to move up more aggressively after a move like this. Now, when looking at the Stochastic momentum indicator, we can see that it is pivoted at 49,400. So if we do see a daily close today below 49,400, that would be continuation of pressure down from Stochastic here, or momentum. If it does close above there, well, the momentum remains in the overbought zone. And this is a regular Stochastic, not a Stochastic RSI. Stochastic RSI measures the velocity of RSI. This instead measures close over close price action. So in this case, it can hang out in the overbought zone for quite some time. Not very concerned about that at all. If we jump over to support and resistance, my subscriptions, I just renewed my subscription, so it's that time of year. All right. When looking at the support and resistance chart, you can see Bitcoin has some pretty important areas that the bands are now coming into. We can see that the upper first is just above that monthly at $47,000, and then we have the next monthly at 45.5, right around this close open high to the basis band as the next big area to the downside. So this is the big area that I talked about in the live stream yesterday that you need to watch if we do see this March 2022 monthly swing high. That is the first bear market lower high from 2022. If we do see a bearish reclaim of that on the daily time frame, then we need to start looking for the upper first into this big monthly zone around that 47 to 45.5. You can even take 45 over here on the close by the basis band. Below there, you can see that we have the basis band well above this weekly at around 43.2 to 3. And then below there, we have the lower first just below, or right at actually right now, the spike low into the weekly at 41,850 or so. That's going to be kind of the line in the sand. Below there, we're looking right back to the lows again around this 39.5 into the weekly by the lower second at 39K to the monthly at 38.5. So pretty simple setup here. If we were to see continuation of Bitcoin to the upside in this case, it does have some overhead resistance here by this upper second right around the wick highs here at 50,800 on a weekly close to the next weekly, which I think is a little bit more important. And this is a 51,800 weekly. Now, the reason why I say this weekly is a little bit more important is because in the context of these weeklies, the 50,800 was not really a closing high structure. We had a high, a low to a failed swing high on a close open as it spiked into this weekly over here, coming off of the daily Wyckoff reaccumulation back in 2021. The first big pullback came off of $53,000, but the weekly close was coming in at 51.8. So this would be the more important one, in my opinion, to the swing high here at around $53,000 before going up further to test the monthly overhead, which is also some longer term time frame overhead resistance. I believe it's a quarterly. We have looked at it before. It's been a little while. We'll check on that again in tomorrow's live stream, but 58.8 to around 61 350 there on the monthly closes. That's really it for the major support and resistance levels overhead. Of course, approaching them from the underside in this case, they are resistance. And in this case, we're seeing Bitcoin attempt to hold up here at this monthly swing high after closing just above it. And the monthly swing high, of course, is that bear market lower high over here. That was the first bear market lower high right here. So, we have seen quite a nice move off of the lows. So let's just revisit what we looked at in yesterday's live stream real quick with a fib pull here of this current move, high to low, and see how our bands are lining up with fib levels. You can see that the 786 and the upper first standard deviation are directly in line with each other today. Of course, this will update at the end of the daily close, and this will be after the live stream tomorrow anyway, because we are already in Wednesday's candle. It's still Tuesday for me here on the west coast of the USA. So just below there, we do see that the basis band is coming in between the 618 and the 50% level. The 618 being the really big one there at 45.5 or so, right around that monthly area. So right in that monthly zone, we have some important fib levels as it relates to this current move. And when looking at the 50% level, it is skating right across the top of this consolidation prior to the move up. And that is coming in at $44,000. And then the 382 and the lower first kind of hanging out just beneath it there, coming in at 42,680, right in the bottom side close area of that consolidation. If that is lost, of course, then we're looking down, well, to come right back into range at least, and probably down a bit further over time. So nothing too crazy has happened. Bitcoin's had a nice move up. We've had many candles. Let's go ahead and take a look. We can measure this out if I actually pick the right tools here. We can go with date ranges, and we can see that prior to getting yesterday's bear candle, we had exactly 7 up days. So a pullback from here is to be expected. And we mentioned this in yesterday's live stream. A pullback is healthy, quite frankly. And, could it turn into something more? Well, let's check on some higher term timeframes real quick. We can see that the 2-day did just close above the upper second standard deviation, kicking off more aggressive expansion of the Bollinger Bands to the upside and downside in this case. We can see that the upper second is right around where price opened, slightly above it there at 49,884, so basically 49.9. Back above there, if it can take out that wick high at 50,420, 450 area, depending on your exchange, then of course I would be targeting somewhere in the mid to low 50s. You can see the 2-day upper third standard deviation, which can be hit during the initial stages of expansion. That's coming in right around that monthly level at the swing highs there, just under $53,000 at 52,861. You can also see that the upper first standard deviation is in line with this closing high now at around $47,000. So the upper first is fair game. That's that big monthly support area between 47 and 45.5. And I would expect that to be tested if Bitcoin does start to aggressively lose 48,240, which is the bear market swing high. Below there, you can see the basis is above the prior consolidation before the move up now, coming in at just under $44,000. It's basically right around the wick highs there at 43,900 or so. We can see that BBWP is getting expansion. Moving average is moving up with it. And I believe they're both turned in tandem, and they are. So this is a confirmed upside move. And as long as Bitcoin is trading above the basis and especially above the upper first, we're looking for price action to head up and to the right. When comparing that to where we are on Stoke, we can see that the momentum pivot is starting to approach the oversold zone or overbought zone. Oversold zone's down here. The overbought zone, but it's still pointed up. And the biggest moves typically occur when we see any asset or indice either in the overbought and or oversold zones. In this case, 43,300 is going to be the momentum pivot. Bitcoin trading far above that, at least for now. And the 3-day, which is closing with today's candle, is getting lift off as well. You can see that it is trading well above the upper second standard deviation. And this is probably going to be the key to watch it as we head into today's daily close. And that's coming in at, well, we'll just call it $48,000. It's $47,950. But right around $48,000 is going to be the number that Bitcoin needs to close above to maintain aggressive expansion of the Bollinger Bands and continued expansion of BBWP price volatility within those bands, and in this case, outside of the upper second standard deviation. Now, if it did lose that area, we can see that the upper first is coming in at around 45,700, so slightly above that monthly at 45.5. This is confirmed expansion to the upside. There's no arguing with this. BBWP is in straight liftoff right now with the moving average chasing. I would expect this to continue. Maybe some timeframes below the 3-day pulling back, even a bearish candle on one of the 3 days coming up. Not a big deal. It's got plenty of room as it stands right now, unless we were to see it, drop probably like $44,000 where the consolidation prior to this move began. So in that case, this is beautiful, beautiful stuff. We also saw this follow through on the 4-day. We see that the 4-day got a nice, beautiful close on expansion here above the upper second standard deviation. This is just now beginning, and that upper second is coming in at 48,823. So, Bitcoin trading about $1,000, $1,200 above there. That's a perfectly logical area for it to come back and test in and around that monthly zone, maybe even below it. No big deal. Intra 4-day closure, at least in this case. And we can see the upper first is now in that 46,400 area. So it's starting to creep towards that monthly at $47,000. The basis is above the prior consolidation area as well. That's coming in at 43,860. So right around the highs of the consolidation before the move up. Very, very nice stuff. And even the lower first is getting some distance off of the deviation low down here at 41,380. Excuse me. I would expect, if Bitcoin started to lose the basis and head towards this lower first, we're likely to see some pretty violent price action to the downside. Not a given, but it's more likely than not, especially below the basis. But as long as Bitcoin is trading 4-day candles and closing them above the basis and upper first, we're looking up and to the right yet again. We can see that momentum is pivoted at 41,800. So right around a vital weekly support zone, and we have confirmed expansion here on the 4-day BBWP up over the moving average, and the moving average confirming now getting into the 20% range. Beautiful, beautiful stuff. The next piece of the puzzle would be to look for this to bleed over into the 5-day. So this is exciting because once we start getting the 5-day confirmation, I should say, then we can start looking for weekly confirmation. Now the 5-day is going to be closing with the 3-day, so this is going to be the other major time frame to watch coming into close today. The momentum pivot is at 44,500. Bitcoin, of course, trading well above there right now. But more importantly, what we're looking for is BBWP to remain above the moving average, and then we need to see what the moving average does in the next close open. So that being the close of the daily today that closes that 3-day and the 5-day candle. We want to start seeing that moving average get an upward slope to begin confirming BBWP price volatility in the upward direction. We've got all of the other pieces kind of in place. Now, if Bitcoin can close above the upper second standard deviation, that would be one piece of the puzzle. And that is closing above that $49,000 upper second. If it can close above there today, great. We have confirmation of Bollinger Band expansion to the upside. No, it is not a deep compression into re-expansion, but we are coming off of lower price volatility, which does mean that it can, run the bands to the upside. It can even get really harsh mean reversion. So keep that in mind. I will discuss this a bit further because there are some downside risk areas to be aware of when we see volatility reads like this as compared to where the bands are. We're not seeing a deep compression of the bands, like a pinch in the bands here. We're coming off of a nice expansion to a moderate compression. So it's not a really deep compression. So this is, unless this just walks the bands up, which is what the bulls want to see, is walk the upper first, second, and third standard deviations to the upside. Of course, they will get expansion after close, especially if Bitcoin can close above $49,000 at the upper second. Then we're looking for the upper first, the basis to begin moving up. We will likely see the lower standard deviations begin to flatten and or even tick down a bit. But we're looking primarily for Bitcoin to remain above the basis and upper first to be bullish, and for volatility to remain above the moving average while the moving average gets a positive slope in conjunction with a fully confirmed cross to the upside. So we have an initial cross on the 5-day here, and this next close, if it can close above 44,500, which right now, of course, seems likely. We don't know what the rest of today holds, but if it can close above that number, then we would see a completed cross back to the upside on the 5-day time frame. And of course, I will follow up with you guys tomorrow. We will look at the weekly and some higher term time frames. I do want to note that this upper second standard deviation is right there in the thick of the overhead resistance, coming in at around $51,000. So that weekly zone, if we look over here, for the Bollinger Bands is coming right into this overhead weekly area up here. So the upper second, right in between that 50,800 and 51,800 zone. And that does make it a likely target as long as Bitcoin remains above this upper first standard deviation at the monthly. And that is coming in at 45.5. So that is my take on price action today. I hope you enjoyed this analysis. If you did, go ahead and like and share, and give me a comment down below. That does help the algorithm there. And I will see you during tomorrow's live stream. Thanks so much. You have a wonderful morning, afternoon, and evening, no matter where you are in the world. Please trade safe, and of course, as always, stay safe. With all of that being said, Landy out.